Hello, welcome back to my lecture. So today we'll continue our conversation, the debate and discussion that we had on the public choice. So we'll talk on the public choice. So in our last discussion that we actually introduced how private goods are publicly produced and how resource allocation happens in that particular context. We also discussed about the taxations, and then how tax revenue gets collected, and then how individual choices are made based on that, and then what is the equilibrium conditions. So those are the points of discussion that we made it in context of public choice. So let us discuss today on the individual's choice and preferred level of government expenditures, like how individual choices are happening on the government expenditures. So now there are 2 points that we discussed in our last class, 2 types of taxation. One is proportional taxation, the other one is uniform taxations. Proportional taxation was like as income increases, then proportionately tax will be collected, and then we also know that small t if the tax rate, and then it will be actually will be collected based on I is in number of populations and or people or household, whatever we consider, and then as income varies like y1, y2, y3, accordingly tax will be collected, and that's how tax revenue will be generated through which government spending will takes place. So now proportional taxation is that, and then uniform taxation. Under uniform taxation that we got it. So under uniform taxation is like overall government expenditures that first will be determined, and then we'll see the sources of the revenue through the taxations, and then overall government expenditure will be divided by the total number of populations of the household, and then that's how we get the per individual or each individual's the total tax that they pay. So in this particular proportional taxation, there are 2 points that we would like to highlight, is like substitution effect and income effect, and here in this particular case we'll see they work in the opposite direction. So what is substitution effects and income effect and price effect, that we already discussed in our consumer preference lecture, and there we discussed like when is this with the help of utility concept, but then with the help of indifference curve and with the budget constant. So income effect is basically if certain commodities, if I consume more as my income increases, or if consuming any commodity, if that has a relation with the income, that person's income changes, then certainly that commodities has a income effect, right? And if consumption over that particular commodity increases as income increases, then it is very normal goods, and that is in particular say consumer durable goods or luxury goods, those are regarded as a normal goods. For instance, if I consume less as my income increases, so those particular commodities will be regarded or referred as inferior goods. The example that we had given in the inferior goods is like private public transportations. As my income increases, if I consume less of the private public transportation and consume more on the private vehicle, so private vehicle here is a normal, but then public transportation will be inferior goods for this. So for the certain commodities or for certain utility that we derive, that has very strong income effect, and certain commodities also has the price effect. So what is the price effect? We are just reiterating again. So price effect, if one particular commodity, like demand over the demand of that particular commodity will be depending on the changes of that particular commodity's price. So that is one way. The other way is if one commodity's price is actually impacting on the consumption of the other commodity, then it is actually called substitution effects, and that is where we also try to discuss with regard to perfect substitution and perfect complementary. So perfect substitution, in that particular case that we had taken the example of say tea and coffee, if that are regarded as substitution hot beverages, for any individual, then certainly that will be regarded as perfect substitution. And for complementary goods, like printer and ink, like printer will not be useful if there is no ink, and therefore if price of the ink increases, then certainly that also has the impact on the on the printer. And the other example that we had taken is like public transportation, like say metro, access to metro. But then if my house is very far away and then there is no services for the local auto, then obviously it will be very difficult for me to access metro. So if metro access needs to be increased, then obviously local say auto services also at the locality also needs to be increased, and therefore these are complementary goods to each other. And then we had given this example in context of our Delhi's metro services and also auto services in the Delhi. So in those are discussion from the commodities point of view while explaining income effect and substitution effect and also price effect. So in case of proportional taxes, like in context of proportional taxes, how it relates. So let us decide like how individual choice and government expenditure will be there. So let us discuss in this context with the help of graphical illustration. See here we consider two commodities, one along with the vertical axis we are assuming we are measuring public goods. On the horizontal axis is like the core debate of this particular lecture is like quantity of public goods. So now again we will take the help of budget constraint and then indifference curve. Say OA is the total amount of output that we get, they get it from the economy, and OA at A point is nothing, is basically total output which we measure at in times of average income Y bar. So total income that economy received, say for two individuals, is OA amount, which is nothing in times of Y bar, which is like total income. So this budget line, say AB, is a budget line for poor person. So for rich person also there will be budget line, and assuming OB dash amount of total private commodity or private goods will be consumed by the rich people, and rich persons budget line AB dash. So this particular budget line for rich person. So where we can see tangent point or the say equilibrium point where budget line will tangent to the indifference curve. So here for the poor person, say this is indifference curve for poor and this is indifference curve for rich. So under the proportional taxes we see as income increases, tax needs to be paid more or proportionately. Even for poor people, if poor people's income increases, poor person also has to pay more taxes. Generally, the general tendency will be if any person, like poor person, pays more for availing paying more taxes, then that particular poor person will consume or will have more quantity of the public goods. So here we can say like G, like public goods, like G is public goods, and GP, like OGP amount of public goods or the quantity of public goods that will be consumed by the poor person. But then here public goods, quantity of public goods consumed by the rich person, like OGR amount. So here two tangent point, one is A and one is B. So we see here, like as tax increases or as income increases for the rich person also has to pay more taxes, but then their general tendency is to have lesser quantity on the public commodities, and then what they will do, they will tend to buy or tend to consume more private goods. But in case of poor person, the general tendency to have more and more public goods consumption, and therefore will have more quantity of public goods consumed by the poor people. So for poor person will have more public goods consumption as compared to the rich person. So this is proportional taxation where individual choices are made, and you can see like here substitution effects or income effects, they are actually going towards the opposite direction. So this is the this is what it happens in case of individual choice and government expenditure. So under the point of uniform taxation, so where only income effect shows. So here again the same, like we can see here is the quantity of public goods, and here private goods consumption, and here the budget line, and then here indifference curve for poor, and here like say AB is a budget line for poor person, and here like say A dash, B dash is the budget line for the rich person, and then you see here indifference curve for the rich person. Again we get two indifference curve, one is A and then one is B. So we see here rich person's consumption on the public goods and poor person's consumption of the public goods. So it's basically very much uniform way, and then we can see there is an impact on the income effect only. It's not there is no substitution effect or income effect that they are actually working together. So for the uniform taxation is very clear, like only income effect will dominate, because that is how overall revenue will be generated, and overall government expenditure will be considered, and that's how it will be just simply divided by the total number of population. Really doesn't matter who is poor and who is rich. So average revenue will be considered, and that will be equals to total government expenditure, and that's how each individual will pay according to the overall taxation. So obviously in this particular case, poor person will sometimes end up paying more, and rich person will get the average due to average effect, will sometimes end up paying very less. So now let us plot government expenditure with the utility. So 2 points here, 2 points that we have to consider is like utility is maximized at a point of tangency between the indifference curve and the budget constraint. So that is where utility gets maximized, that we already know. And then after maximizing the utility, the preferred level of expenditures like G star, that will show that lowers the level of utility, right? So there are two ways that we can actually discuss. So one is, let us assume that way, like let us draw. So here on the horizontal axis, like along with the x-axis, is like again quantity of public goods, and here say we are plotting along with the utility. So generally utility will be high, will be increasing, then it will reach maximum, and then it will again start declining. At that point, what we are calling it, maximum utility. So utility is maximum at OG star amount of public, quantity of the public goods, where utility gets maximized. So we know that as utility increases over the public goods, then obviously demand for the public goods will be increasing, and quantity of public goods also will be more, and it will reach at the maximum point, and then it will start declining. So now let's move to utility as a function of government expenditures. So again, if we consider, like there are three groups, just assume three groups, like poor group, then or three persons, like poor, then middle income, then the rich, and we see here, we again will plot its quantity of goods, and here utility with, say, we're assuming just for uniform, which has only income effect, with uniform, so taxation. Here we are not assuming any proportional taxation. We are not considering that, because their income effect and substitution effect, they're actually is ambiguous. They actually move towards the opposite direction. So in this particular case, it's just the utility for the uniform taxation. So for the poor person's utility will be, like assume like this one, like utility for the poor income household, then say this is for the middle income, like utility for middle income, and then for the rich is like, say, utility for the rich. So every person or every group has different utility along with the types of the taxation. So here one is a maximum, here like poor person's utility will be maximum at, like say, at G star, OG star P amount. For the middle income, so their utility will be maximum at point B, and for poor persons, utility maximum is at A, and at that level, poor persons consumption on the public commodity will be OG star P. For the middle income group, utility is reaching at the maximum at B, and corresponding to point B, like equilibrium point B, middle income group or middle person, their consumption on the public goods will be at OG star M. For the rich person or high income group, a rich person will be achieving or will reach at the maximum utility at point, say, C, and then corresponding point C. Rich persons access to public goods, or the total amount of quantity of the public goods will be G star R, and this is how it will go with a uniform, say, taxation, that how utility will go up and up, because when we are going up is basically utility curve is moving, utility curve for the public goods is moving upward based on the level of income, and then total amount of public goods consumption will also be increasing as their income increases. So uniform wise, of course, that because we have only considered uniform taxation case where the utility will be reflected, and consumption for the public goods also will be in this case, rich persons consumption on the public goods will be higher as compared to middle income or middle income persons, and middle income persons consumptions towards the public goods will be higher than poor persons consumption towards the public goods. So I stop here, and then these are the two references that I have used. Mainly this particular class that I have used more from the Joseph Stiglitz section on the public, the chapter on the public choice. So I stop here, and thank you very much for your attentions. And these are the few concepts that we discussed in the public choice. This will be used more in details in my next lecture on the public choice. But then these are very fine and concept that one really needs to remember, and that's how I request all of you to please study further to understand this public choice from the utility, from the taxation's point of view, much more in details. So these are the selected chapters from these two books will be helpful, and thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you in my next class.